All right. So let's not waste any time. I literally yesterday was going to upload a video talking about who do I think wins the war. And well, I had an issue with the file uploading to YouTube, so I had to make some small edits to it while I was trying to figure that out. And since this is a new channel, I had to verify the account, do all that stuff. And then I fell asleep, so I didn't upload it. Woke up this morning and we had news. So I guess that 20-minute video will not see the light of day, but it was fun to make, I guess. So here we are. If you don't know what we're talking about, if you didn't read the thumbnail or something, we're talking about Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers from Discovery. So basically, as the hours have gone on, we've gotten a little more detail, a little more context about what's going on. But to me, I won't say all hope is lost. As you can tell by the title, and we all know, I mentioned it in that video that I guess if people still want me to release it, I can release it, even though technically it's outdated, but whatever. That, Netflix is the worst case scenario for everybody. Netflix is the cinematic Hollywood antichrist. Because at least if they were the devil, they'd be honest about who they were, or at least would do it in a fun and unique way to subvert our expectations. But they're the Antichrist. They lie in wait. They feed you one good thing to try to earn you back, just to rip you right back down and send you to hell. So, they're not to be trusted with anything. They have proven that they are not to be trusted. But if this is the reality we live in now, where they do end up finishing the acquisition of Warner Brothers, which, by all reports, if it gets through the government and all the antitrust stuff, which we're about to talk about, it wouldn't be finalized till Q3, Q4 of 2026, because Netflix's bid and acquisition of the company is not for any of the syndicated TV networks, the TNTs, the TBSs, the CWs, or any of those other cable networks that Warner Bros. Either owns, has operations, licensing agreements, whatever the case may be. Netflix doesn't want that, obviously, because who would want that? Well, Paramount does, but that's a different story. And in the case of Netflix, the interesting thing is essentially they're overpaying. That's really all it is. There's no other way around it. They saw an opportunity to acquire a library of stuff that they don't have to do any work to create, to make a fan base, to risk investing money on, when they can just buy it and say, well, we've got Harry Potter. Well, we've got, to a certain degree, Lord of the Rings. Well, we've got this horror franchise and that horror franchise and this other film coming out and that other film and this Oscar bait movie coming. So it's easy for them. From what I can see, the news is a little shaky because you'll see CNBC report one thing, CNN report another, Bloomberg report another. So I don't think we'll get any real clear clarification or information till tonight, or probably this afternoon tomorrow. From what I'm seeing is that I don't know the exact number, so don't quote me 100%, but this is correct enough. Paramount was trying to pay $27 a share for an acquisition of everything Warner Brothers, the cable networks and the film, TV, gaming division all together. $27 a share. Warner Brothers was asking for 30. Okay, Netflix supposedly offered a little over 27 and some change for just half of the company. So they're basically overpaying by anywhere from as low as closer to 30 billion to 40 billion dollars. Essentially, when everything's said and done, finalized, I'm seeing numbers thrown around about 82 billion, 83 billion. Most places are reporting that it's a 72 is the base offer, but after adjusting for some numbers and accounting for other properties that need to be spun off, and Netflix having to pay for kind of legal things with that separation of the company and stuff like that, it could be upwards of about $82-83 billion. Now the question is, where does Netflix get the money? And that is an excellent question. They get it from investors and liquidating other assets and stuff like that. But from what I've been seeing from a lot of industry people, a lot of people in the finance space who actually kind of know what they're talking about, is if this goes through, this could be catastrophic, either good or catastrophic bad for Netflix, because they're essentially leveraging every and anything they have access to and every favor and good fortune they have in the finance industry to get this deal done. And if it doesn't pan out even 30% of the way they want to, it could fundamentally change the company to the point of it'll never go out of business. It's Netflix. But they themselves could be on the losing end of a hostile takeover in the future due to not being able to pay debt. For all we know, Elon comes in, sweeps up and buys Netflix because terrible decisions. They might end up in an AT&T scenario where they cooked the company into so much debt that they had no choice but to try to sell it off to the next sucker who's willing to take their shot at it just because, I like Harry Potter or whatever. So here's where my 2 cents comes in. What we've seen is Netflix seemed like the underdog in this scenario because they were. All signs were pointing to Warner Brothers' great relationship with Universal Comcast as being a surefire thing. We had heard that the Saudis were investing with Universal to purchase that part of Warner Brothers. The CEO of Comcast went to Saudi Arabia, met with, I don't know if directly with Mohammed bin Salman, but, with whatever the sovereign wealth people are over there that run that finance stuff. And Zaslav, CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, and him, CEO of Comcast, Average Joe, seemed to be good friends. So it seemed mostly like a surefire deal because they had denied so many Paramount offers prior to Universal even putting in their first bid. So I wasn't really worried. Netflix seemed like the underdog. It seemed like the government maybe has a vested interest in Paramount, as some people say, just for the sake of now all of a sudden Paramount has the backing of multiple Middle Eastern wealth funds, from the Qataris to the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund to the UAE. Basically, all the big players in the Middle East are with them. So that raises the question. If the Middle East is with Paramount now, where does that leave Comcast? Well, honestly, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Because of the three competitors, seemingly, I guess, technically they're the brokest one. Because I believe Comcast themselves, not Universal, but Comcast as a corporation, has like some absurd amount of debt, like $90 billion or something, like some inhuman number that we can't fathom. Some funding Ukraine type of debt that we don't understand. But I think, and I haven't seen many people talk about this, I think there may be a silver lining. What do I mean by that? I believe that this is all a sham. Warner Brothers Discovery, I guess mainly Discovery in this case, does not want to sell WB to Netflix. Netflix is not to be trusted. They'll release 4 Warner Brothers films in theaters, like they say, and then give an excuse. Well, we never said how long. We never gave an exact amount. Blah, blah, blah. And then move it all to Netflix. Or digital, whatever streaming service you want to say. I think this is essentially a way for Discovery to remove Netflix as a player entirely. Because the federal government or individuals in the federal government, the antitrust lawsuit, lawyer guys, FCC people, other regulatory bodies, made it clear before this even happened days ago that they would not want to see Netflix do an acquisition of Warner Brothers due to the fact is that borders on monopoly territory. And anybody with half a brain sees that that's true. If Netflix buys Warner Brothers, they own HBO Max. Their only direct competitor that's even close. That's not something like Hulu, but Hulu doesn't count because it's TV, really mainly TV, and Disney doesn't care about it anyways because they're getting rid of it. So Max is their only competitor. If they allowed the number one streaming platform on the planet to buy the number two streaming platform, maybe not on the planet, but in the Western world, in the first world countries, that's about as big as a monopoly as I've ever seen. That is the definition of when you go to law school and look up antitrust, it's going to be a picture of the Netflix logo with the Turum spelt next to it. Because if you allow that, you cook the industry. It's as simple as that. Netflix will be unstoppable. They will have the monopoly, and we will be living in the streaming cyberpunk dystopia. So my idea is, my little conspiracy here, someone, put an Alex Jones clip in here or something because we're about to get a little crazy. My idea is Warner Brothers is entering this agreement, this exclusivity deal with Netflix, knowing that it won't go through, so that they can use the legal system to fully eliminate Netflix as competition for Paramount and Universal and get them out of the way completely without seeming like they're showing favoritism to one of the parties or other. I think they're doing this knowing the government will shut it down, knowing Netflix will not be allowed to deal with monopoly laws that they won't be able to get around, knowing that antitrust will come after them, and then they can say, we're going to halt this sale and not allow it. Thus, it will be impossible for Netflix to continue to pursue trying to acquire them, and they're out of the game. And they're stuck with two competitors. Comcast Universal, Paramount Skydance, Larry Ellison, the Saudi Prince, and Aladdin are all going to be there. Now, they don't want to sell to Paramount either. So we can go one of two options here. Option one, they get Netflix out of the way, basically take a smaller deal from Universal, their buddy, and we call it a day. And, everybody sings the songs and praises, and we praise God that we've survived another day from the rapture. Or what I've been seeing some people report, which is a whole mess in itself, but I guess it's better than Netflix, is a joint buyout where Universal and Paramount purchase it together, split the assets into whatever corporations they want. So essentially, they both team up. They offer the full amount, the full $30 that they want, totaling to $75 billion or whatever that amount is that they want exactly, to outbid Netflix. They split it. Paramount keeps all the cable terrestrial networks, all the subsidiary news stations, the contracts for other content that they have, and Paramount gets it for half the price essentially because they only pay for the half they want. And Universal pays for the half they want. They get it, and it'll be easy to get by regulatory bodies because there'll be so many different investors and so many smaller companies. They can avoid a lot of the digging around for international investments based on certain amounts and stuff like that, so that they can just basically both get what they want, split it in half. And then, if maybe Universal throws Paramount a bone, they'll give them access to things in the Warner Brothers library every once in a while if they're not going to use it, or vice versa. If Universal needs some sort of cable network access or wants to show their films on, TBS or something, which you don't see often, they now get that access by being associates with Paramount. Those to me are the two likely options. We are seeing reports now as well, maybe 30 minutes ago before I started making this video, that weirdly enough, even if it goes to Netflix, since WB will still somewhat be its own entity just under Netflix's umbrella, that they're talking about still licensing new properties such as DC to the Universal parks or any sort of Universal destinations type of thing, which seems inevitable anyways, but then that's just a whole other debacle, a whole mess. So I would just be careful with, unless it's legit, giving too much credence to any information you see out there. Excuse me. And to end it off, I guess, if it does go through, right? if all our prayers are for naught and the rapture ever draws closer and Netflix does get Warner Brothers, I think if that were to happen, that will be the catalyst truly to Hollywood's demise. And it may seem like they're on the up and up. If that happens, Netflix will profit heavily. They'll do a lot of stuff. They might make some good choices. Who knows? But if that much power is put into the hands of Netflix, the studios will have to take notice and realize not only is streaming in general their competitor, but Netflix as a studio is now their competitor and probably is now on par, if not bigger than most of them. They'll sure as hell be bigger than Sony. They definitely will be bigger than Paramount at that point. And then so all it leaves is Disney, Universal, and Netflix WB or whatever they call the company. And in that case, that's the time for independent creators to just go crazy and start their own, adjacent industry to the Hollywood format. Because if this happens and the Netflix Antichrist does win the war, we're cooked. We're cooked, and we're cooked bad. Not even well done. We're just burnt. Charred, burnt, and broiled, and left to die in the trash. But I have hope. We shall see. There's a couple weeks before the deal is finalized, so one of the other competitors could come in with a bid too good to refuse, and they renege on the agreement, go back on it, and say, actually, we're going to sell to Xbox Game Studios and call it a day or something. Who really knows what's going to happen? But so many weird things going on with this. It's probably the craziest acquisition that's ever happened, really, more than Disney buying Fox, because that was kind of a seamless transition. Because all this stuff with whoever buys it's going to restore the Snyderverse, or if Paramount gets it, they want James Gunn out, or James Gunn refuses to work with them if Paramount gets bought out, or they don't trust Netflix at all, and then the Saudis want the Snyderverse back, and all this. Just a side note, quick little side note. If people want me to make a video, more of a rant conversation video, I will. What is with these people who are excited about the return of the Snyderverse? I get Superman wasn't the best movie ever like we wanted, and Peacemaker Season 2 had some people kind of take issue with a lot of it, which I understand. But it's just like, do we not remember the Snyderverse? As much as I like parts of it and I like Zack Snyder, is duty. Because there never was really a Snyderverse. It was only Snyderverse in name, because he wasn't even involved with 90% of the projects. If he was, it was consulting, which consulting just means he read the script, drank a Diet Coke, and went home. There was nothing really there. But let me not ramble on about that. If you want me to make a video about that, I can make a video about that and talk about it, because that's been something that's on my mind. So, with the war, I don't believe it's over. I believe this is a strategic battle, but we shall see if truly Netflix is the victor. So let me know if you people have any other thoughts, if you think I'm brain dead and I'm smoking copium and that I just have to accept that now we're going to see Harry Potter in the next season of Stranger Things and a spin-off where Hogwarts was actually just in the Stranger Things universe the whole time, and 11 is actually Voldemort. But let me know what you think. Give me your advice, and I will see you on the next one.